Hello and welcome to the Central Now. I am Lekan Onabanjo. We now start with the stories right away, even as we begin with the update on End Bad Governance protest. As the protest enters day 10, the supposed last day of the demonstrations, some residents of Gaskiya-dan-Magaji area of Wusasa, Zaria in Kaduna State have raised fresh allegations against the Nigerian Army. The residents allege that apart from Ismail, whom the Nigerian Army confessed to have erroneously killed in Samaru, other persons escaped with their lives after being shot at by soldiers. Among those who made these allegations include a grandmother located at number 88 Unguwan Fatika in Gaskiya-dan-Magaji area of Zaria. The residents also revealed that there were no other persons who lost their lives from gunshot wounds. And after a brief hiatus, the End Bad Governance protest in Lagos has ended, with organizers citing escalating violence and safety concerns as the primary reasons. On day 10, marking the final day of the demonstrations, News Central's Nigbalani visited several protest hotspots in Lagos to gauge public sentiments. Residents and remaining protesters alike shared their views on whether the End Bad Governance movement achieved its intended goals. And in response to pressing challenges facing the youth across Nigeria, youth advocates in Borno State have launched a comprehensive initiative to identify needs, develop solutions, and present a blueprint to the government. But then, we go back to Lagos, even as Niyomoni gives us details about this End Bad Governance protest.
It's day 10. This is Ojota. We can see very little police presence here, unlike what we've had earlier when the protest started, and nothing is going on here. A few minutes ago, we just got information that this group gathered here at Alausa, Ikeja.
The group that is represented here is the Take It Back movement, and then the consensus remains the same. The president had actually addressed the country, but he never addressed the concerns of the protests.
This protest has shown that Nigerians are not coward, and for the first time, we refuse to allow tribalism to divide us.
Why do you need to start doing all those unnecessary expenses at the detriment of the people? No! So we don't care. We want the something back.
Okay.
Then Tinubu should make sure he order all the agriculture, those who are farmers, that should bring back the bag of rice to where it was. 20,000 naira. We don't want 40,000. No.
Meanwhile, normal activities have resumed, with a heightened security presence at key intersections across the mainland.
It didn't affect my business. Everybody are working.
While the camp provides a welcome relief for resident and business owners, lingering questions remain about the protest's effectiveness in achieving its goals.
The aim and goals of the protest is partly achieved. It has given a notice to the government that people are angry, and so the government should not be comfortable with what they are doing.
I think that it's not achieved its aim. That's what I think, because they're not taking it very seriously.
You're spending anyhow, and you're telling people to relax. We are planning for you in the future. So the trust is not there, no matter what he says. So the only thing that can calm or can make people relax more is probably fight the security, and there's food.
As Lagos settles back into its routine, the focus transitions from the protest itself to the policy responses that may follow. Will the government address the protesters' demands, or was the protest simply a fleeting moment? Only time will tell.
We reject all IMF policies in Nigeria. Thank you.
A sequel to that is the pressing challenges facing the youth across Nigeria, where the youth advocates in Borno State launched a comprehensive initiative to identify needs, develop solutions, and present a blueprint to the government. The initiative comes in response to the recent nationwide protests in Maiduguri, which highlighted widespread dissatisfaction among some younger generation regarding more opportunities and improvements. News Central's Mark Rawa completes the report.
The first day of August 2024 in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, witnessed some youth groups protesting on some major streets. The protest, which was part of a nationwide cause against high cost of living, among others, later turned violent. Youth peace advocates in Borno state here analyze the implications of the protest and identify strategies to promote peace among communities.
We shouldn't be talking about the protests around, because if the government should have heard the cry of the people, and people should have understand the plan of the government. And I think if this time have been cemented, who have been challenges like that. So government should improve very much in it, in assessment ability, and let the programs be properly shared.
As youth advocates, we are creating an alternative way in bringing a solution that this kind of protest will not happen again. What I recommend is the youth should always be given a listening ears.
If you look at the protest, most of these people are uneducated. Some of them are younger youths that they don't even know what the protest means. So there should this need of advocacy.
This move is part of a broader effort to transform the energy of the protest into constructive dialogue and actionable policy changes.
We found out that the youth that participated, though they have a reason for this, but the protest was poorly handled. So we say, okay, why can't we have a civic way of making this demand? So the youth have now come up with a process where they will now release out a medium where all the youth in the state, including the illiterate and educated one, will make their need, and then the need will now be collated together, and then we present it to the government at the subnational and national level for response, because this is one of the gaps we observe happening in the society.
The youth advocates are working to ensure that their proposals reflect the genuine needs of the community for sustainable peace and development. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Well, joining me to discuss the final day of the protest is the Executive Director, Not Too Young to Lead Initiative, Elvis Akpobi. Elvis, thank you so much for joining us. Well, with the hunger protests supposedly ending today, do you think that the Nigerian government has gotten the message?
Yes, we've gotten the message, and for me, for the first time, we see a government running from pillar to post. Despite I'm overwhelmed with shame that they were trying to handle, they were not handling the substance, they were just handling optics, but they should know that there's a generation of young people they need to negotiate with. They should know that once young people are not given safe spaces, they use their energy negatively, and when they use their energy negatively, it reflects negativity in society, and a lot of activities are disrupted. I don't mean to digress, but you agree with me that a handful of people making policies for us today, a handful of people leading us today, the persons that benefited from scholarship from the leaders that were leading them, were persons that benefited from free healthcare. I was told, I wasn't born then, but they benefited from, I've seen papers, documents, that this person benefited from free healthcare. They had an enabling environment where they didn't even need. My uncle told me at the time that when you are done with school, there's a job waiting for you. How come these persons, the leaders there, they made better policies, and the present leaders who seem well read are not making good policies? So I think we should be asking ourselves some questions. Is it that we contracted governance to the wrong set of people, or the times are changing? But for me, we have a government today that now knows that if they don't invest deliberately in young people who make up 70% of the policy in the population of this country, we are sitting on a ticket type of.
Well, talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, Elvis, talking about governance and response of the government to people's agitations, let's do a bit of comparison. The protest in the UK had over 400 arrests, a couple of hundreds of people prosecuted in an accelerated judgment, but no deaths. So if you have to put it side by side with what happened in Nigeria, what do you think?
Because in the UK, they have a working system. Back here, we don't have a working system. And let's not forget too that when people are angry, they can do anything. What the protest is saw back here in Nigeria is a reflection of when you push people to the wall, it boomerangs, and that's where you see too. And let's not forget too that a handful of these people are not educated. If you observe in places where we had loss of lives, we have people destroy government properties. There's a low curve of education and exposure in those places. Another thing that is key, again, you agree with me, in one of those interviews, I watched an interview, the National Organization Agency, the DG, personally came out that they are underfunded. So at the moment that place is they're not working, so they don't disseminate information to people on the need or to citizens on their actions and the consequences of their actions and inactions. You see in the protest in the particular region where people were carrying Russian flags, which if the National Organization Agency is working properly, citizens will know the consequences of carrying another country's flag, and they will also know that the advantage and what it takes. They will be passionate about carrying their own flags.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so then I'd like to also get your opinion as regards if there will be some sort of prosecution of the security operatives, because that's been the calls of a couple of Nigerians, most especially those who were shot and killed, and the families are saying, hey, these security operatives should be arrested and prosecuted. We can track back to 2020 and tell me, do you think justice will ever be served?
And unfortunately, Nigeria is a place where things that are abnormal now seem to be a norm. I was in Canada last month and I saw the LTD, liquid board control board, why the workers were protesting. I even saw policemen organizing the protest for them, making sure they were able to amplify their voice. But back here, you see cases where even people who are taxed pay their money, who are taxed gives them the arms they are holding, want to use that arm on citizens. So I think at the moment you don't have a working system. But like I always say, in accordance with point fingers on the leaders will have to be the report from the sky. The citizens are not supposed to become leaders. So if we should gravitate towards educating our citizenry, because these citizens will become leaders, and the mindset they have will be a reflection of the society we'll have in the future. So, but security men shooting at protesters and planning on that's unlawful, or we're in a system where anybody can do something wrong and get away with it.
Elvis Apobi, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll still continue to talk about this on News Central Television, even as I understand that our correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, who is in Zaria, Kaduna State, is standing by to bring me updates. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us on the news. So I'd like to get fresh details from you as regards what happened in Zaria and what the position of the military is in the face of an allegation that they have been killing a few people in the state.
Good evening from Zaria, Kaduna State, of course. It's very important to state that the people of Zaria are still enraged, they are still aggrieved. Of course, we only reported a Samuri case, and of course, the Nigerian Army have responded to the Samuri case. But on our way to check the latest situation in Zaria, we are blocked by the residents of Gaskiya-dan-Magaji around the Wusasa area at the entrance of Zaria, because they said they saw a story about Samuru and we must report their story. And then it resulted in a kind of a very, very moody situation where we were exposed to a lot of allegations against the Nigerian Army and of course the Nigerian police, because of the shootout. I mean, we show a video of a grandmother whose legs, whom a bullet was removed from her leg. I mean, that's so disturbing. And then we have a lot of videos that we're going to release, but we're not going to release them pending on when we have the we have to hear from the side of the Nigerian Army and of course the security operatives. But the general ambience in Zaria right now is the fact that the youths want to continue protesting and they want the government to control hoodlums encroaching in their protesting in their space. That's what it means in Zaria right now.
Does it mean you've not been able to interact with many of the security personnel or security chiefs in Zaria to actually understand why that supposed onslaught went on in the country or in that particular part of the state when protesters were on the streets?
Yes, there's something that we all have to understand, because security is a governance issue. And we as journalists, we're trying to do accountability journalism. Accountability journalism in the security sector. Whatever calls you make for security agencies, they have to analyze what calls you are going to make. I have tried a lot of numbers that were given. The numbers are not going. Numbers of the Army Public Relations Officer, Onyema, numbers of the first PRO, and then of course number of the DSS spokesperson Peter Funanya, and then a lot of others, NSCDC is there. So they are all analyzing the issues. We don't have to rush them in this kind of situation. Today is the last day, day 10. We expect a lot of reactions, but we're not in a rush to put out those videos that we discovered about abuse of citizens, innocent citizens. We only just show just a tip, just a 5% of the videos that we have during our 3 p.m. this evening, so that we can just give them a hint that we are coming to them to get more explanation, doing our job as holding government accountable according to Section 23 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. So that was what we did. So, but all the calls we made, the numbers are good. At this point, we are not bothered of making any calls.
Okay, Emmanuel.
The day 10 is finishing today.
All right, no problem, Emmanuel. Thank you.
Make all our calls, yeah.
Thank you very much. I know you are still documenting the situation. We'll keep tabs with you to get more details from you, probably tomorrow. But then we appreciate what you've done so far, and we hope that you stay safe while you continue on your job. Thank you. Let's move on now to tell you that parents of victims of the End Bad Governance protest in Katsina State are appealing for the prosecution of security operatives that shot at protesters during the demonstrations in the state. As a result of the shootings, some protesters allegedly lost their lives, while many other sustained gunshot injuries. We have more in this development, of course, in this package.
The measures adopted by some security operatives during the End Bad Governance protest in Katsina State have left some families mourning the death of their loved ones, while others are nursing severe gunshot injuries at home. And the families say these victims were not among the protesters. Here, Mukhtar Mohammed mourns the sudden death of his 21-year-old son, Shafiu, who was shot dead on August 5th in Katsina metropolis while he was sitting far away from a major road where operatives of the DSS were chasing some protesters. His father is now appealing for the security operative that killed his son to be brought to justice. The measure, according to him, would serve as a deterrent to other trigger-happy security operatives.
Akan abin da aka yi mana yawa dan ba za mu yi haku daga nan ba morowa Allah ba, muna so a bi mana haƙin mu kamar yadda duniya ta sani an yi mishi, suna da haƙi sai ya gano kowa ya wannan abu, saboda haka yadda aka yi mishi su ma su hukunta shi kamar yadda ya mishi wannan abu, su gano shi kuma a nuna duniya dan wanda ke gaba kai sake irin waɗannan abubuwa a hukunta shi kamar da yake aka yi mishi. Shine babban mu abin da muke so, babu wani abu da za su da takaicin mu idan mun gani radin da muke da shi zuciyar mu za ta yi ƙasa kuma mu samu zaman lafiya.
This 16-year-old boy who has just completed his secondary school education is lucky to survive the alleged shooting by the DSS, but he sustained gunshot wounds on his left leg. He narrates how he got shot while going on an errand.
Zan je wani shago na kaji da yake ina dan kiwon kaji. To ban kai ga ta lungun gidan dirɓo ba. Kawai sai na ji halbi ga ƙawata. Juyowar da zan sai na ga halbi ne. Daga nan sai aka kai na asibiti. Lokacin ni ta haya nake yi. Sai na ga mutane sun rugo to juyowar da zan sai na ji an halban ga ƙawa. Sai na shiga wani lungu nan na tsaya sai wasu suka ɗaukan suka kai na asibiti.
His mother says she sent him to inform his other brother to lock up shop and leave because the protest had commenced and was fast escalating.
Zuwa can aka zo da gudu aka ce shine aka halba. A wannan dai mun ba mu Allah yin shi kawai. Tun daga Allah haka Allah ya rubuta mun sa hakuri ga Allah.
Hamza Abubakar is another victim of the shooting on the 5th day of the protest in Katsina metropolis. He was shot in the stomach and the bullet exited through his back. His family is keeping the empty shell of the bullet that nearly killed their loved one. He is now receiving medical care at the Federal Teaching Hospital Katsina, where his family was asked to deposit the sum of 450,000 naira before treatment could commence. Residents of Katsina metropolis are calling for the prosecution of the security operatives involved in shooting at protesters with live bullets.
Kiran gare mu gwamnati ta yi mu adalci. Muna son justice. Ya kamata a ce duk wanda jami'in tsaro ya ɗau ran shi ba bi ta haƙƙi ba. Ya kamata gwamnati ta bi mai kadin shi. Shine adalci wanda za ka yi matalaka. Ba mu da wani gida wanda ya wuce ƙasar nan. Kuma ba mu da wasu wanda ya wuce wannan shugabannin. Muna neman adalci bisa ga wannan kisan gilla da aka yi wannan ɗan namu.
Interestingly and worrying is the fact that most of the victims are destitute who struggle daily to eke out a living.
We'll now go on a short break on the news. We still have more stories in a bit. Just stay with us. Many thanks for being there. Youth groups on the Plateau have restated their commitment to peaceful coexistence in the state. In the press conference in Jos, the Coalition of Plateau Youths said that despite political, religious, ethnic and social-cultural divides, all hands need to be on deck to ensure a more civil and organized state. News Central's Chizobanyowe tells us more.
August 10 should be the last day of #End Bad Governance in Nigeria in all states of the Federation. Unfortunately, the peaceful protest in some states turned violent, causing an abrupt end of the exercise. Plateau is among these states that had the fair share of this violent protest, which was welcomed with a 24-hour curfew, though continuously reviewed downwards from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. now. With business returning to normal now, residents who spoke to News Central off camera said they will not turn out for a continuation of the protest in the interest of peace and safety of both lives and property. The Coalition of Plateau Youth Movement, during a press briefing in Jos, joined their voice to the call for a better Plateau state.
We don't want the protest that will rock the peaceful coexistence of Plateau states. That is why most of us have written and have called out that we are against the protest. Any peaceful protest, it snowballs to destruction of lives and properties. As you can see, it was peaceful, first, second day. But afterwards, some miscreants took advantage and want to tarnish the image of the state. And today I have made it categorical here that as lawful as we are, we should not indulge in what will destroy the entity and sanctity of the state.
In another development pertaining to the protest, the Plateau State Independent Electoral Commission say new dates of activities for the local council elections in the state will be announced soon.
These adjustments ensure that the election process continues smoothly while maintaining the integrity and fairness of the electoral system. PLASEC remains fully committed to ensuring that all political parties can participate in the elections without any disadvantage. We want to reassure the public and all stakeholders that the rescheduling will not affect fairness or transparency of the election process. Our focus is on providing a level playing field and equitable opportunity for all political parties involved. We appreciate the understanding and cooperation of all political parties, aspirants, and voters as we navigate these changes. PLASEC will continue to provide updates and further information as necessary to ensure a smooth and effective election process.
It is hoped that with these measures put in place, Plateau will wear a better face with its normal activities sooner than later. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Aniuwi.
And with the country's economic crunch tightening, more and more Nigerians are feeling the effects of the hard times. The government has repeatedly assured the people that the current situation are birth pangs that will ease off over time. But for most citizens, these endless messages of hope offer little succor as they find it increasingly difficult to survive. In this report, News Central's Chinwe Ogele experiences firsthand the survival struggle of a typical family in Abia State.
The reality in the country today is such that many families now only worry about their daily meals and maybe their children's school fees. Embarking on capital projects such as construction of houses or purchase of new cars have become extremely expensive. Mrs. China Sokoronko is a civil servant who lives with her family in Ohokobendume, one of the communities in Omaha North local government area of Abia State. As a junior staff in the Ministry of Women Affairs, her salary is barely enough to take her family through each month with her sons, one of whom living with disability, daughter-in-law and grandchildren. Although Mrs. Okoronko does not pay house rent because she lives in a humble abode her late husband jointly built with her, she is saddled with other responsibilities. Daily, she spends a minimum of 400 naira on transportation to and from work due to the distance of her workplace, when she can, but treks sometimes in order to conserve some money for other pressing needs. For her, feeding her family is the most pressing need, as she must find food for them, even though they must adjust in quality and quantity. Government constantly seeks understanding and patience from the citizens, but for how long can the people patiently wait while struggling to feed, pay house rents, electricity bills, transportation fares, among many others?
were sie ya maka onye dị ka ọgụ na ụfọdụ ihe m ga-akpata ya n'obi m ma ugbu a ọ ga-ezu 5000 na ezukwadịrị anyị isi ofe ọ bụrụ isi na ka ekpo ọgụ 5000 ma ego ole ma water leaf ihe ndị ọzọ ị ga-eji were mesatụ ya ọ bụrụ agụfụrụ anụ adịghị ya o mana ị ga-spend more than 5000 unlike before.
The recent hunger protests that citizens of the country embarked on is just an expression of the pain most Nigerians live with daily, with no sign of when the situation will improve. In Omaha for News Central, Chinwe Ogele.
Let's now tell you that a Nigerian businessman, Tony Elumelu, says the government and the security agents in Nigeria should be able to tell Nigerians, those behind the theft of the country's crude oil, especially using vessels that move through the territorial waters. Elumelu stated this in an interview published by the Financial Times. Elumelu, who dreads oil theft, said the menace contributed to the divestment of international oil companies in Nigeria. He said he discovered firsthand why international oil companies were partly divesting from onshore assets after criminal gangs began stealing crude from pipelines. The 61-year-old founder of Harris Holdings recalled how the previous administration of President Muhammadu Buhari allegedly stopped him from acquiring an oil field. Now, Nigerian investigative journalist David Hundeyin has accused an international non-governmental organization, Dialogue Earth, of offering him an 800,000 naira bribe to smear the world's largest single-train refinery, Dangote refinery. In a lengthy post on his X account on Saturday, August 10, 2024, Hundeyin detailed how the NGO reached out to him sometime last week with a brief that required him to write a negative review about the Dangote refinery using climate change and environmental concerns as justifications. According to the controversial roundsman, Dialogue Earth, formerly known as China Dialogue Trust, is based in London, United Kingdom, and headed by an Oxford professor, Sam Gale. He alleged that several American intelligence fronts, such as Ford Foundation and Climate Works, which is blacklisted in India for funding organizations working against India's national interest, are financiers of the NGO. Moving on now. Lagos celebrated the International Day of the World's Indigenous People in grand style. The state hosted a unique celebration that puts the spotlight on the unsung heroes of cultural preservation with traditional practices, performances, and powerful messages calling for unity in diversity and preservation of the culture for future generations. News Central's Adeshewa Dushoga reports.
The International Day of the World's Indigenous People is often celebrated in August to recognize and celebrate the contributions and achievement of indigenous peoples around the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the celebration took on a unique significance, highlighting the vital contributions of indigenous women in preserving and passing on their communities' cultural heritage. The event, which was organized by the Lagos State Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, brought together indigenous people from across the state, showcasing their traditional practices and emphasizing their crucial role in safeguarding cultural knowledge. Recognizing one of these special appearances, veteran actor and poet Peter Fatomilola commended the Lagos State government for maintaining and sustaining the rich cultural festivals in the state, while also calling for the preservation of the culture and traditions by parents.
If I speak Yoruba, people will identify me to be Yoruba background of Oduduwa. If I see Igbo man speaking in Igbo, nobody will tell me before I know the area he or she comes from. You know, any man without culture and tradition is like a baby born. The naming day, he has nobody to name him or her. Therefore, such baby has no identity, no history, no background, and we call such children bastards.
The Lagos State government pledged its support for indigenous communities, committing to initiatives that promote cultural preservation, education, and economic empowerment for indigenous women.
It is very important for us to preserve our culture. And without our culture, we are nobody. So we need to uphold our culture. Our culture is our value. So what the Lagos State government is doing is to harness all the cultural aspects in Lagos State, bring them together and speak to it. What type of development do we want? Through culture. And if you look at a developed world like China, they do with their culture. India do with their culture. So why must we do without our culture? So that is the reason why the governor deemed fit and said we should come up with something like this. And just of recent, in the Lagos State House of Assembly, we passed a motion that Lagos State should host Lagos Heritage Festival, where all the Yoruba in Lagos State will come together to celebrate our cultural diversity.
As the world celebrates Indigenous Peoples Day, the Lagos event serves as a reminder of the significance of Indigenous women's roles in preserving cultural heritage and the need for collective efforts to support their endeavors. The state government also pledged to continue to use its cultural and tourism heritage to draw global attention and drive investment opportunity for the state. In Lagos, for News Central, Adeshawa Odushoga.
Coming up on the news, 2 children, 6 adults confirmed dead in Uganda landfill collapse. We'll bring you the details in a short while. Don't go away. The news continues in East Africa, where 8 people, including 2 children, were killed when a landfill in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, collapsed on Saturday. It was reported that some homes, people and animals were engulfed in the landslide at the garbage dump in Kitizi, a district in the north of Kampala, after heavy rainfall. The Kampala Capital City Authority, which operates the landfill site, said 14 people had been rescued and taken to the hospital. It did not disclose their condition. The KCCA said there was a structural failure in waste mass that morning, resulting in a collapsed section of the landfill. The head of the city authority, Arias Lekwago, had warned in January that people working and living near the Kitizi landfill were at risk of numerous health hazards due to overflowing waste.
Nze nfiiriddwa abantu wano mu Kiteezi ku Kasasiro. Nfiiriddwa abantu kumpi 7 bafudde nyumba ekisasiro kyonna kibayise ne kibagwako era abaana omukyala bonna bafu naye tufunyeyo abana be bakavaayo naye abalala tebannalabika bakyasima tulabe oba tunaabafuna.
By local time, Ugandan's local time, that is 5 p.m., we had so far retrieved 12 dead bodies and conveyed them to the mortuary for post-mortem examination. We managed to rescue about 10 who were rescued alive.
In other continents, today will be both a critical and difficult day for the police service around the UK as officials deal with protests and the return of the football season. There are both far-right and anti-racism gatherings planned at different locations around the country, while the start of the English Football League season means thousands of football fans will be travelling around the UK.
Scary, it's been infuriating, but I wouldn't say it's surprising. I think we all know that the UK was built on racism, the empire was built on racism, so it's not something that surprises me at all. My circles, like I have a lot of black friends, I have a lot of non-white individuals in my circles, so hearing their stories day to day, I know that this is something that they've been facing on the daily. It's just that this has become so big now that white people can't ignore it anymore. And even myself, like as an immigrant in this country, I faced xenophobia.
Talking business now, the federal government has initiated a $500 million project to upgrade power transmission infrastructure in Lagos and Ogun states. The initiative, funded by the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, aims to address power shortages hindering industrial growth in the region. Power Minister Adebayo Adelabu announced the project during a visit by Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun. The project will involve constructing new substations, upgrading existing ones, and expanding power lines to boost capacity in Agbara, Mowe, and Shagamu industrial clusters. Adelabu appealed to the governor to collaborate in improving gas supply to power plants and industries in the state. Abiodun commended the minister's efforts and requested further support for Ogun State's industrial sector.
Following Team Nigeria's disappointing performance at the 2024 Olympics, Nigeria's Minister of Sports Development, John Eno, emphasized the importance of drawing lessons from the experience and preparing for the 2028 Games in Los Angeles. He made these remarks during a meeting with journalists at the Nigerian Embassy in France. In response, Nigerian athlete Peter Moreno has called for a thorough reform within the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, urging the ministry to remove those who are hindering the progress of the nation's athletics.
I think everybody that's in the board member needs to go. From the TD, from the president, all the way down to the AR, all of them, they need to go. We don't need them. We need new people that are actually angry to see Nigeria athletes do better. People that are thriving to make us do better, not the people we have on the board. You know, Nigerian athletics is like politics. When you take over, they suck you into their system and you become like them. Nothing changes. Just like our presidents, nothing changes. We need to get rid of all of these people.
The U.S. women's football team has won gold for the first time in 12 years at an Olympics after defeating Brazil on Saturday at the final in Parc des Princes. The United States defeated Brazil 1-0 through a second-half goal by USA forward. The game was settled in the 57th minute when Mallory Swanson scored in front of the goal with an assist by Corinne Albert to put the U.S. 1-0 up. This victory marks the U.S. team's return to the top of the podium after missing out on gold in the last two Olympics, where they took bronze in 2020 and lost in the quarterfinals in 2016. The International Olympic Committee President, Thomas Bach, said at the Paris Games on Saturday he will not seek to remain in charge for a third term, despite calls from members to stay on. The German lawyer, who has been in charge since 2013, said he was asked to continue, but said he would not attempt to extend his mandate and change the Olympic charter that limits the president to a maximum of 12 years in the role. The new IOC president will be elected in March 2025 at the session in ancient Olympia. No member has yet openly campaigned to succeed Bach.
As a result of deep deliberations and extensive discussions, also with my family present here in the room, I have come to the conclusion that I should not have my mandate extended beyond the term limit stimulated by the Olympic Charter. In order to safeguard the credibility of the IOC, we all, and in particular I, as your president, have to respect the high standards of good governance which we have set for ourselves.
Manchester City avenged their FA Cup defeat against Manchester United by winning the Community Shield 7-6 on penalties on Saturday following a regulation time 1-1 draw at Wembley Stadium. Manuel Akanji hit the winning spot kick after Johnny Evans had sent his effort over the bar, ensuring the champions avoided a second consecutive Wembley loss to the FA Cup winners. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola will celebrate the win, knowing his side has underperformed in the Community Shield in recent years, losing the previous 3 consecutive editions to Leicester City, Liverpool and Arsenal. And that's a wrap on Sports Updates. I am Udoka Njoko.
And that's all at this hour, but before we go, we look at our top stories again. More victims allegedly shot by the army in Zaria during anti-hunger protests have been uncovered. Businessman Tony Elumelu has tasked the government to expose those behind the stealing of Nigeria's crude oil. We also told you that 2 children and 6 adults have been confirmed dead in Uganda landfill collapse. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. And you can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.